Hello, this is Chapter 2 for Traditional Logic, the chapter that will deal with comprehension and extension. Before we start, I'm going to give just a little bit of a warning. This is the chapter where we start to deal with some pretty abstract ideas. So stay with me. If you don't get it the first time, don't worry. We're going to be going over these ideas a lot, and by the end of the chapter, I think you'll have a pretty good handle on them. You'll remember that in the last chapter, we dealt with the properties of simple apprehension. In this chapter, we're going to deal not so much with the definition of what simple apprehension is, but more with the properties of simple apprehension. The definition is an explanation of what something is, but knowing the properties tells us what distinguishes that from other things, how it is the same, or especially though, how it differs from other things. Some concepts, and remember concepts, just another word for simple apprehension. There's simple and others are complex. In the last chapter, we talked about simple apprehension, and the example that we used was that of a chair. When we're asked what a chair is, we can say, well, it's a structure, it's a piece of furniture made out of metal or wood, and it's something that people sit in. That's a fairly simple concept. There are other concepts, though, like man or human being. Those are harder concepts for us to define. Once, when the philosopher Plato was asked to give a definition of man, he gave kind of a funny definition. He said that man is a featherless biped. And on the surface, that's kind of true. We do not have feathers, and people do walk on 2 feet, and so calling man a featherless biped, that's kind of true. But there are some things about that definition that don't really tell us important things about people. For instance, it doesn't tell us that people are rational. It doesn't tell us that we are beings created in the image of God. It also doesn't separate us from other creatures like chimpanzees or gorillas or monkeys. Monkeys also would be featherless bipeds. And so that becomes the importance of comprehension. We can define it by saying comprehension is the completely articulated sum of the intelligible aspects or elements, or notes is another word we're going to be using, represented by a concept. I know that's a very complex, a very technical definition. Another way to think about it is comprehension answers the question, what is a clear way to describe the concept that we're talking about? What helps define this in a way that separates it from other things? So, for instance, if we're talking about human beings, if we're talking about man, we can start by saying man has a substance. This just means that man is something rather than nothing. For instance, ideas like love or charity, those don't have substance to them. We can say that man is material. He's made out of something. We can also say that man is living. This distinguishes us from things that are made out of material like rocks or a chair that are not living. We can also say that man is sentient. Sentient just means that we have senses. We can see, we can hear and such. And finally, we can say that man is rational. In other words, we are able to reason. So we would say that in talking about man, we would say the comprehension of man, we'd say he has substance, he is material, he's living, sentient, and rational. Those we'd say are the notes. We're going to be talking more about notes later, so don't worry too much about that now. We're going to keep going over these concepts. But for the next time, for Friday, you should read pages 13 through 19. You should read the chapter. Then you should also carefully read pages 13 through 15, which goes over the material that I just covered. And then finally, you should do the exercises for day 1 in Moodle. Those will be due by Friday morning. Let me know if you have any questions. I will try to answer them, and we will talk again.